The weekly featured dungeon for Rite 9 is now Ghosts of the Deep, and with that comes changes to the dungeon itself as well as refreshed weapons, so let's talk about it. Opening up with the first encounter, let's talk about the changes. So the main change for this encounter is going to be a change to the requirement to complete the objective. Bungie has changed it from lighting up 4 statues to complete the encounter to only 3. This is a fantastic change, and something that I thought should have been included in the original Ghosts of the Deep to make it 3 instead of 4, to not make it feel sluggish. So now we have 3 statues instead of 4, but it does come with a drawback. You see, now we have only 3 statues to light up, so you think the encounter will go faster, and it will, but you also are on a timer. So while the encounter overall is shorter, you still have to go at a moderately quick pace to not get lost, otherwise you can easily fail this. Since you only have 7 minutes to complete this encounter on Ultimatum, you need to utilize some sort of speed tech in this encounter, whether it's an eager edge sword, or if you don't have that, you could try using a vehicle, your sparrow, or your skimmer. However, if you're going to be using a vehicle, I do need to mention that there are moths everywhere, and you can easily run into one of them, making your vehicle explode, which would then cause a death, which can affect your rewards. As for the enemies on this encounter, they're exactly the same as the original Ghosts of the Deep. You have Hive everywhere, then you have Hive light bearers as you get closer and closer to the symbol that you need. The objective also starts exactly the same. You're going to be at the middle of the arena. An ogre will spawn in one of the directions. You need to find that ogre to locate where the trail will be taking you, and then locate the symbol from there. Small note here, when you're going to be going for ogres 2 and 3, luckily Bungie has also changed the whole deep sight mechanic to where you don't have to dunk and then wait around for 15 to 20 seconds for another ogre to spawn. They will spawn in very shortly, and you can just continue the run from there. Thankfully, this is a good change, because otherwise, this encounter would have been such a nightmare to just wait around. Anyway, as you progress from symbol to symbol, the name of the game is definitely going to be Ad Clearing Builds, as you continuously have to fight through them in order to get to the light bearers. So as far as characters go, Warlocks, you can definitely use a Lightning Surge build here for maximum optimization. Titans, of course, have Consecration, and for Hunters, you can utilize either a Search Arachne build, a Gift of Conviction build, or just straight up a combination punchy build. In case people don't know what I mean by punchy combination, that is Liar's Handshake plus Caliban's Hand on an exotic class item. I know this is going to sound very dumb, but use your super actively. I can't tell you the amount of times I've seen people just hold their super in the event of emergency. Instead, in this encounter, given that you're on a timer, you should actively always use your super on every light bearer that you see. Killing a light bearer with your weapons may take 10 to 15 seconds. Killing them with your super takes literally 1, and that just saves you 15 seconds by default. So make sure you're spamming your super. Moving on to the traversal, I'm going to quickly cover this. There's not a whole lot to cover, but still worth mentioning. First, the water pressure. The mechanic is pretty much the same as the original Ghosts of the Deep, but if you happen to run out of oxygen and your overshield starts breaking, you die in about 3 hits. So it's a much smaller window to recover, so make sure you're not stealing bubbles from your teammates. If you have to, either group up and do it at the same time, or split off to different paths where you get your own set of bubbles and nobody conflicts with each other. And the other thing is, during some sections, there will be doors that are locked by hive symbols, so you won't be able to just brute force your way through with a sword. Instead, you have to kill some yellow bars in the area in order to open the door. They're not anything crazy, just some yellow bar ogres, some knights, etc. So just be prepared for crowd control. Now let's move on to the first boss, Ekthar, arguably the hardest fight of the dungeon for most teams. The boss fight is largely unchanged with a few tweaks. Those being the inclusion of Bane enemies, and in particular Zealot Banes, which in simple terms will make it feel like you are getting hit with volatile rounds, so just be careful with that. The other change is, again, the water pressure. 3 ticks and you're basically a goner, so you need to emphasize not getting hit in the water and always having a bubble nearby to recover. I'd recommend only sending down 1 person, that way they can move around freely as needed to avoid Ekthar, and then kite them away from symbols that they need, so there are no conflicts with other players. For up top, positioning and healing is key. As a rule of thumb, you should never be pushed up at the very front of the room, especially by yourself. Well, other than, of course, dunking into the statue. Try to keep your chains going by the staircase for added safety, and then your Titans/Hunters should be on the front lines dealing with waves, while Warlocks should be supporting, as they'll be playing the role of Well or Song of Flame. Let's proceed to damage for Ekthar. There's more than one solution to damaging Ekthar efficiently, from Lord of Wolves to Microcosm to even Thunderlord, as you might be seeing on screen. But for the sake of both efficiency and survival, my personal suggestions are the following. Like I mentioned, you want to bring a Warlock into this and utilize either Song of Flame or Well Radiance depending on your DPS option. They'll be using Tractor Cannon to apply a 30% debuff, and then preferably a Trench Barrel Shotgun for added damage. Ideally, Perfect Paradox, but any will do. Meanwhile, your teammates should consist of at least 1 Stormkeep Titan for Bolt Charge shenanigans with the Barricade, as well as support. Bolt Charge is just simply too good and efficient to not use at your disposal. Not only will it feed you tons of damage, but it can also quite literally give you an extra full super in one single damage phase. If you have 2 Titans, then both of you should utilize either double Storm's Keep, it's that good, or you can do a 1-1 split between Arc Titan and Shran Titan with Banner of War. Banner of War will make more sense in a second here, but both of these effectively heal you. They also give you lightning strikes. They will feed you super energy, not to mention the damage resist you will get from both amplified from barricades and flashover, as well as Banner of War constantly healing you. Now, if your third player is a hunter, I would only recommend they play Tether if you are not utilizing a surrounded DPS setup, as Tether will just trample over all the enemies caught in it and then ruin your surrounded perk. If you're utilizing surrounded, then stick to Tractor Cannon for the Warlock. Finally, what is our DPS setup for weapons? There's a few options, and some of you might not even expect one of them, but first, the obvious is going to be Lord of Wolves. You guys know by now how dominant it is even after the nerf, and it goes hand in hand with the Storm's Keep setup, plus with the Warlock being Tractor and well. So you do massive damage to Ekthar, including potentially a 2-phase. Following that is Glaives. Yeah, that's right. Winterbite has emerged to be a pretty solid strategy here that works and is very consistent. Thanks to the No Bell artifact perk giving you bonus glaive melee damage and Syntheseps helping with that as well, which all 3 classes can now utilize thanks to exotic class items, you can slam Ekthar to death by just mashing him with glaive melee combos. While you're doing this, you also have that added protection from one of Well of Radiance, Song of Flame, Storm's Keep barricades, or the Shran Titan running Banner of War and Woven Mail, if you opt to go that route anyway. This again can give you a comfortable 2-phase. I also want to mention Legend of Acreus here. Acreus has been a staple in this boss fight literally since the dungeon released, and is very reliable here due to Acreus not being a crit weapon and being able to hit Ekthar anywhere on the body for full damage, as long as you are within range, of course. Acreus, as well, can net you a 2-phase. The last 2 picks are sleepers, but they can get the job done all the same, especially if you don't have any of the things that I just mentioned previously. And those are going to be Thunderlord, which I'm sure I have shown on screen at some point here. It can get the job done if you just have a div player. I know people love to meme this weapon, but hey, it can kill the boss while a lot of weapons can't, alright? The last thing I want to mention is Bequest. Bequest is a legendary sword that has the surrounded perk on it that you can craft. It's also the highest impact legendary sword in the game, so it can pack quite the punch. Bequest is money on this boss for the same reasons it is on Crota. You are easily swarmed by enemies, but you can take advantage of this to do huge damage. The Bequest setup is very similar to the Glaives. The only difference is you do not need multiple Titans, nor do you need Syntheseps, and can instead just use other exotics. Just be sure to not use Tether with this option for the reason I mentioned earlier. Finally, let's move on to the final boss, Samuma. So, I'm gonna just be a little critical here. Maybe not critical, maybe brutal is a better word for it. But this boss, comparatively to Ekthar, is a joke. Don't get me wrong, the encounter still has some difficulty and you can definitely die and wipe plenty here. But comparatively, the boss and just killing the boss is a complete cakewalk. To Ekthar anyway. If you've done the Ghost of Deep dungeon before, which I imagine if you're on Ultimatum you definitely have, then the encounter is basically completely the same, except the ads hurt more because it's on contest modifier, or -20 for leveling purposes. But other than that, you can treat the encounter exactly as you would on normal, and just complete it that way. Now, obviously, the Moths will hurt more and one-shot you, and the Light Bearers can also one-shot you, so you do have to play carefully around that and play accordingly, but your knowledge for the encounter and how you walk around is completely the same. The only things I would change is you move around as a unit as opposed to splitting up in 3 different spots and doing 1 light bearer each, right? So, for example, your full fire team can go into the left-hand side and deal with the Sentinel Titan Hive light bearer because I think he's the hardest personally anyway. The Frisbee discs are no joke, and you should just go cook them immediately. But hey, if you're confident in your abilities, you can totally just solo each room if you'd like. The main tip I do want to give here is in the center of the arena and where you're going to want to start damage. And that is always, always, always going to be the chest. You can reliably depend and manipulate that damage always starts at the chest, and you can't do that for any other of the Oryx body parts. Sure, you can RNG your way into your favorite spot, but that's not guaranteed to be a spot in every rotation. And even if you hate the chest spot for the Thrall, the Acolytes that might spawn in, you can still start damage there and break her shields instantly, and then move on to one of the lake spots to the left or the right if you'd like. Now, as for damage itself, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of weapons to actually kill Samuma with, and I'm sure I'm going to make a bunch of shorts on that, but that's besides the point. The simplest and easiest method you could possibly do on this boss, and I'm not joking, put a Warlock with Divinity and Cenotaph on, pop well, put Div on her, and shoot her in the face with Queen Breaker over and over and over again. Now, I'm sure some people are gonna fire back with, you can't use Divinity and Particle, it'll make Particle not give her the 27% debuff. Yes, that is true. That doesn't matter though, because what you want here is consistency. And more overall, the boss's health bar is, again, compared to Ekthar, a joke. Because the damage phase is very, very, very long. And despite Divinity taking away that 27%, it still provides the 15%. You still get your rewind round procs and your particle procs for your Queen Breaker reloading. And while that's happening, you also have, ideally, Titans giving you barricades for Stormscape, giving you tons of Bull Charge procs, which will then give you a second Thunder Crash. And you combine all of these things together, and you will either one-phase her straight up on Ultimatum, and if you don't, you will comfortably two-phase her, and it won't even be close. And just to show you what I mean, for this footage that you're watching here, this is actually going to be a completely scuffed run. Everything that could go wrong does, and we still managed to essentially two-phase her. Well, we leave her at 1 HP, but essentially two-phase her. And I'm showing this specifically because I want to show that even if you're not a hardcore player, if you're not a perfectionist, if you're not a super perfect optimized team, you can still make mistakes and still do very, very respectable damage on her, if not just two-phase her, even with scuffed setups. Now, you might ask, Sneak, I don't have the Queen Breaker Catalyst, so I don't have rewind rounds, so what would be my next best option? And honestly, point blank, Thunderlord can again be used here to get her health down somewhere in the neighborhood of like 65-70% with very, very little effort. It won't one-phase like Queen Breaker, but it'll give you two supers and very easy relaxed damage and a comfortable two-phase. Otherwise, I would just say Microcosm. The reason why I say Micro is because everyone should have it. You can easily get it. It's a quest. It's not like it's RNG to get or anything like that, like the Catalyst for Queen Breaker. And also, Micro is a perfect weapon for this boss. She's a shield boss when you start the damage phase. That takes care of that issue basically instantly. On top of that, when you pop your Well or your Thunder Crash, you get a 20% bonus damage buff to Micro for 20 seconds, I believe it is. On top of that, the artifact also supports Trace Rifles and doing bonus damage with Harsh Refractions, which does work on Micro in case you're wondering, by the way. So, all that coupled together, and then, again, a div just being on the boss because she is a mobile boss and annoying and moves around and all of that, you can comfortably still just two-phase her even with Microcosm and get the job done. And who knows, maybe there's more weapons that are even better than the current setups that we have right now. I'll be testing plenty of weapons on both bosses, but in the meantime, if this guide helped you or if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing today. It does help the channel grow and is much appreciated. If you want to go the extra mile, you can leave a like and or a comment below as well. If you don't know what to leave as a comment, you could leave, I don't know, cheese fries as the comment. Anyway, thanks for watching. Catch you next time.